So
Oh,
World Tree are the largest grower of Paulownia in North and South America. Paulownia is the world's fastest growing hardwood. It's a tree that matures in close to 10 years, 10 to 12
hmm,
years. And when harvested, regrows from the stump up to 7 times. And
right.
it comes from China. There is an invasive species and a non-invasive species variety,
Hmm.
which World Tree, of course, are propagating the non-invasive one. But it's been used in
Hmm.
China for years for instruments. It's a very
Hmm.
light wood. It's like the balsa wood. It's very light but very strong.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um, and one of the applications for this lumber is guitars and musical instruments. And when I was working for the company, I looked into the fact that the guitar industry is facing a shortage of these traditional tonewoods. And,
Hmm.
as a non guitar person, I never really thought that the industry was in trouble. I didn't realize that this wood, you just imagine the wood is always going to be there.
Hmm.
And I
Hmm.
remember reading an article by Bob Taylor, who had started this urban wood initiative where he was bringing in
Yeah.
old telegraph poles and things and making guitars out of them as
Hmm.
sort of to highlight the fact that this shortage is going to be creating problems going forward. And then
Hmm.
the
Hmm.
more I read about it, um, Paulownia is likened to swamp ash, which is also disappearing.
Oh.
Um,
Hmm. Hmm.
so if you could
Due
have
to
a
a beetle
farmed,
infestation.
is beetles, is it?
It's an emerald ash boring beetle, which is an invasive species, which is taking out the ash trees in North America. Yeah. Yeah.
But is there in the guitar industry? Is there any farmed wood? Is it all sourced from old
Well,
growth forests? Or
I I mean, well, there is now. Um, so you mentioned Bob Taylor and the Taylor Guitar Company. They bought forests or plantations of ebony in India or Africa or maybe both. I don't quite remember, but that's where it's indigenous to, is that sort of area of the world between Africa and India. Um, and so ebony is one of those things. And part of what they also did was that ebony is favored because of its dark color. Of course, its density, also material properties, but also the fact that it's almost black at sections. But the sapwood, where the nutrients are growing up on the outside of the tree, is actually quite light. And because the black parts were favored for things like piano keys and guitar fretboards and violin fretboards and such, they were just discarding the portions of the tree
oh,
that weren't black. And so now within our industry, we're using those lighter colored portions of the tree, which are still quite useful. And we think it's one argues that it's also beautiful. There's natural beauty involved in the variation in color and the high contrast and such, And so that's a part of the conversation. But I think that old growth is certainly a part of it. But I mean, let's face it. Before the Industrial Revolution, everything was kind of old growth. Right? You didn't cut down the new trees. It was sort of on mass consumption that you moved through all of the old trees and then went to younger and younger trees. And so there's a interesting sort of conversation to be had about the older trees versus the younger trees. And well, also what we're learning in science is about as far as the connectivity of trees and the communication throughout a forest, that a forest is one large ecosystem, that was sort of almost one nervous system, that the one type of tree serves this function within the nervous system of the entire forest. And when we crop plant trees for renewable wood sources, we don't yet fully understand that to grow X tree actually requires Y tree to be mixed in with that tree, because they don't exist as individuals in the forest space. If that makes sense to you? Yeah.
that's
So,
that's very interesting. Yeah.
thank you for watching and listening. You can find more episodes wherever you listen to your podcasts. And a special thanks to those who support us on Patreon. It's your support that enables us to do this work.